Today we're looking at a figure who is often remembered as the last founding father president, James Monroe. This is a guy whose absolutely unmatched resume effectively drew the map of the 19th century United States as we know it.
And honestly, it begs a pretty profound question. Who actually was the most qualified president in 19th century American history? Well, to answer that, we have to follow the incredible architect arc of Monroe's life. We're going to trace his journey from being a suddenly orphaned young man in Virginia all the way up to becoming a geopolitical mastermind.
Section 1. The Last Founding Father. Let's take a quick look at where his story begins. Born into an affluent family in 1758, he was actually orphaned at a pretty young age, ultimately leaving the College of William and Mary to go enlist in the Continental Army's 3rd Virginia Infantry.
Section 2, the ultimate presidential resume. Because as you'll see, surviving the American Revolution, well, it ignited this relentless drive in him for public service, kicking off a truly compounding buildup of experience.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how incredibly dense his background actually is. I mean, he fought in the Revolution and was actually wounded at the Battle of Trenton. After the war, he served in the Virginia General Assembly and the U.S. Senate. Later on, he became governor of Virginia and took on these highly critical diplomatic posts across Europe. By the 1810s, under the Madison administration, he was Secretary of State and Secretary of War, literally acting in both capacities at the exact same time. It made him uniquely, maybe even perfectly, prepared for the presidency.
Well, to really understand Monroe, we also have to understand the duality of his life. On one hand, he had this incredibly prestigious tutelage. He studied law directly under Thomas Jefferson and even established his Highland plantation right next door to Monticello. But on the flip side, we have to look at the harsh reality of that estate. Over his lifetime, Monroe owned over 200 enslaved people. They provided the brutal labor that sustained his family's lifestyle, and some of those individuals even accompanied the Monroes right into the White House.
Moving on to Section 3, doubling the nation's size. Let's fast forward to 1803. President Jefferson entrusts Monroe and Robert Livingston with a massive continent-altering task, securing access to New Orleans and the Mississippi River from France.
And the deal they struck? It completely exceeded all expectations. They secured the agreement for just $15 million. Now, while $15 million is obviously a lot of money, to put that into perspective for what they were actually getting, the scale of this deal was just absolutely staggering. Because that $15 million translated directly into 828,000 square miles of territory west of the Mississippi. With a single diplomatic stroke, they effectively doubled the size of the entire nation.
So the crucial point is that this massive expansion brought some incredibly complex historical realities with it. Sure, it opened up vast new opportunities for white settlers, but that came directly at the expense of Native Americans, leading to widespread displacement. Plus, as the country rapidly expanded westward, it created a highly volatile mix of expansionism and slavery that became an immediate threat to a very fragile union.
Section 4, the era of good feelings. Taking office right after the War of 1812, one of Monroe's first tasks was making sure they restored public buildings, like the president's house itself, that had literally been destroyed by the British.
From the ashes of that conflict, he helped usher in what we now call the era of good feelings. We're talking a remarkable period of relative political peace, undeniable economic growth, and intense nationalist fervor. And Monroe didn't just sit back and watch it happen. He actively invigorated that spirit by going on massive goodwill tours all across the country.
Yet, beneath all those good feelings, that volatile mix of expansion and slavery we just talked about was hitting a complete boiling point. Monroe managed to temporarily diffuse the crisis by signing the Missouri Compromise of 1820, trying to desperately maintain the delicate balance of power.
Let's move to our final section, the Monroe Doctrine legacy. While he was managing those intense internal divisions at home, Monroe was also looking outward, working closely with Secretary of State John Quincy Adams to firmly assert American sovereignty on the global stage.
And this brilliantly illustrates his lasting impact on the world. The Monroe Doctrine formally asserted American independence from European interference while also claiming a national right of influence over the entire Western Hemisphere. That single idea profoundly shaped the next century of international relations, cementing the United States as a true global power.
Which leaves us with this final, profound contradiction to chew on. How did the chief architect of 19th century America, the literal champion of the unifying era of good feelings, also set the stage for the nation's greatest internal conflicts over westward expansion and slavery? It's a massive, complex legacy of unity and division that really forces us to look closely at the very foundations of the country he helped build.